Hello, welcome everyone. We're so glad that you are joining us tonight via video for our online peer mediation platform. And we are just so pleased to have a wonderful person, Ondine Gross. So Ondine, thank you so much for doing this webinar tonight. And before we turn it over to Ondine, I do want to share a little bit about the online peer mediation platform. The peer mediation platform is the host for tonight. We belong to the National Association of Peer Program Professionals. So let's see if I can share my screen and get this going here and just tell you a little bit about us. Okay, so a little bit about the online peer mediation platform. See our team, and as you notice, Ondine is on our team, and we are very blessed to have her. We have a very diverse team, from people from the Midwest to California, and we also have a member from Argentina. And so we're just so happy to have this great group of people. We were funded originally in 2014 by the JAMS Foundation. We were managed by the Association for Conflict Resolution. And then in 2016, we became managed by the National Association of Peer Program Professionals, who still manages us today. This is our website, by the way. We'd love for you to check out our website. We have all kind of different things on our website. For example, we have online resources for peer mediation that are free. For example, useful links, research, best practices, standards. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a peer mediation standard that was created by the Association for Conflict Resolution. We have curriculum links, and we have different types of media. We also have some basic conflict resolution modules that you can actually purchase for your students. We show students how they can use these basic mediation skills. It might be a great addition to retraining your students, especially since a lot of schools are not in session right now, that students can actually use this as an online training. So just something to consider. We also have skill development for students. So we will help you show your students how to build their skills by doing online simulations. So that's something else that we do with schools. And one day, in the hopefully not too distant future, we will actually be able to do online peer mediation services, where we will have students from across the country conduct mediation with other students. And since we're living in a world kind of online right now, there's still conflict going on out there. So we see that as something that's a reality. So let me see if I can. Oh, so we do take in consideration student safety. One thing that we don't do is we don't have contact with your students. We train you to work with your students in peer mediation. We do have some partners that we work with, but we're also always looking for partners. We're always looking for certified, qualified trainers and people who want to work with middle school and high school students. We do have some services that we want to just quickly go over. We do have a peer mediation coordinator training. It's a 32-hour training course that we offer. We have an organizational conflict resolution training for organizations. We have done a few of these trainings with organizations in the United States. We also have restorative teacher-student mediation that Ondine has put together. This is an amazing training, and Ondine has written a book, and she'll share that, I'm sure, with you about her book. We will be doing mediator mentor training, where we'll use college students to help mentor high school and middle school students in an online setting. You can always view our past webinars. We have a YouTube channel. We also have a blog on our website that you can go to, and that will take you to our YouTube channel. This is our YouTube channel, by the way. This webinar will be on there tonight, and so this might be how you found us. So again, this is our website, our URL, and we're just really happy to have Ondine on. And so I am now going to turn it over to Ondine, and Ondine, I'm going to allow you to share your screen, okay?
Oh. Yes. Okay.
Sorry,
hi, everybody.
Hold on one second, Ondine. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Let's see. Are you able to share your screen? Can you try it?
Try it now. Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay, hold on one second. So let's try it again. All right, round two.
Okay. Yeah, now it should work.
Awesome.
Okay, share. here and then present. Okay. Oops. Sorry, guys. I went to the very first one. Oh my goodness, I'm making it.
That happens to me all the time too. So you're in good company.
Well, you can get a sneak preview that I like using images.
It looks amazing.
Good. Okay. We're going to start now. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight in the midst of a pandemic. And for those of you who are here in person, I welcome you. And for those of you who are tuning in on the website at a later date than the live presentation, I welcome you as well. And I have my contact information here, so please feel free to submit any questions to me at any time, and I'll be happy to answer them. So, you know, one of the things we have to do whenever we face a problem is name it. What is the problem? And we're in a pandemic, and I think so many times we blame ourselves, or we think we're too stressed out or something like that, and we really have to stop and remember that this is a huge destabilizing force in our lives, and it's affecting everybody, and it's been called a mental health crisis. You know, during a mental health crisis, we all react differently. And one of the things that we always go back and forth with is, what do we know? What do we not know? What is uncertain? What is certain? And it's kind of like anything in life. We can't control what's uncertain. We can't control things like weather. We can't control the trajectory of COVID. We can't control the timing of when we can return to normal. But what can we control? Well, we can control what we do or say. And when we think about connecting with students, we can ask, how are you? We can teach and focus on things, and we can connect. And let's try this together. And a big part of this talk today is going to be about that connection. You know, we all have different resources. And I think the thing that the pandemic has shown is how differently it's affecting different communities. And it's really highlighted that there's differences among communities on how it impacts people health-wise, how it impacts things like Wi-Fi access, food, and of course, when we're talking about students, how it impacts their learning and their social emotional adjustment. You know, this, for those of you who took Psychology 101, you might have learned, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this was kind of like a cartoon, because among all of the things that people need to survive and get through, especially in an educational setting, is Wi-Fi. So I did want to include this resource for families, and you know, just to know that there is an awareness out there that a lot of people are needing skill sets associated with navigating in computers and Wi-Fi to be able to access education, and there are free supports. I wanted to throw this slide in here to remind us that when we're teaching, when we're in schools, when we are doing it remotely, it's not always possible to see students. And a lot of times, even in remote classrooms, students are turning off their cameras. So we really have to make sure that they are okay. And I wanted to remind people that, you know, it's okay to ask, to make sure students are safe. And if you think that there is possibility of a student is unsafe, it's okay to report without proof, and you're not making an accusation. You're asking a professional to just go check on that child and family. So I wanted to remind everybody that this is something that's very frightening right now about our children who might be in harm's way. Many of you might have been exposed to training about trauma-sensitive schools and what that means. And it's basically just saying, it's acknowledging that we're a safe and supportive community, that we want our students to feel safe. We want to build caring relationships with one another. We want to help students regulate their feelings and behavior and learn. And in order to do that, a trauma-sensitive school fosters resiliency by helping people feel safe, be connected, get regulated, which is learning coping skills and learning. And how do we do that? Well, with all things, we start with ourselves. We as adults around children have to be a calm presence. And with that, it's okay to show vulnerability by letting kids know, this is what I'm doing to stay balanced. It's appropriate to be honest and reassuring about what we see and what we understand, and to acknowledge that it's hard. It's also advised that we don't discuss unknowns or dire predictions or worst case scenarios, because we're not there to generate more fear and anxiety. And it's really important to be calm, and also to understand that reactions among students will vary. And, we're there to be non-judgmental and honor students' individuality. That picture is a cool drink of water. I like this image, and I threw this in here because I have a friend who works at a library, and this is actually an image that the library uses. And when I was thinking about, a lot of schools across the country are using remote learning, and they're sending a lot of material to students, a lot of work, a lot of homework, a lot of assignments. Some of it's packaged curriculum, some of them are designed by teachers. But I learned from my library graphic design friend that they're very purposeful in the colors they use and the fonts they use to make images that help reduce anxiety. And this is actually a tree they created and things like that. So I just wanted to remind people to be aware of kind of what we're sending out to our kids and families and what it looks like. So I think an important thing during a pandemic, when we have access to children in schools, is to think about one big idea. And that idea is, how do we create a community of care? How do we create a community of care with the people we see in our classrooms, in our schools? And so I'm going to talk about three ideas today. Idea number one, daily check-ins. And this is where the teacher says, hey, let's create a safe space. Let's create a no judgment zone for each other, where it's okay to not be okay. And check-ins can be as simple as, what's one word that describes how you feel? How are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? Thumbs up, thumbs down. There's many ways to just do a quick check-in. But it's also a way of finding out, like, what do you need today? And how do we support one another? How do we welcome back someone that's been gone or absent? Or how do we show grace and forgiveness if someone misbehaves? Because we're not all at our best right now. So I think that when we sort of create this idea that we're in this together and that we're going to support one another, that can be very powerful. And when that's reinforced with a daily check-in, I think students can really feel cared for. Another idea is creating a community of care with weekly circles. Many of you have heard of restorative circles. Circles can be called many different things, but it's the idea that you're creating a space kind of outside of the regular reading, writing, and arithmetic curriculum to come together and listen to one another and talk about things. It's really designed to boost social emotional skills, listening, expressing feelings, expressing care for others. It can also be used to solve problems, but it's a wonderful way to understand each other across race, class, age, gender lines, and build trust, because when people start sharing, they realize they're not alone, that maybe other people feel the way they do, and it's a strong way to connect. So one thing that's good about circles, as opposed to just having a classroom discussion, is that the design of a circle is that you hear from everybody. Sometimes people choose to use a talking piece to pass around, so you only speak when you're holding the piece. But you hear from people who might normally stay quiet, and everyone's equal. They're engaging, everyone belongs, everyone cares. And it's just a lovely sort of activity that becomes a ritual in a classroom. There's many different types of circles, and I just listed a bunch. And you might choose to have a circle just to build community in the classroom. There's some examples on this slide, and I won't read every slide out loud to you, but just to give you some ideas. So these are to build community, to show care, to show interest in one another. Also creating classroom norms. What do we expect from each other? What are things we care about? There's circles about learning objectives. What were your thoughts on today's lessons? Are there concerns you'd like to talk about? It's powerful when someone says, well, I found it confusing. I found the lesson in science confusing today. Oh, I found it confusing too. Learning you're not alone. And then there's just having fun circles where people might share, musical, dance, or fun things. Or what a lot of people do is have circles at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. So that check-in I showed you before, which is just, thumbs up, thumbs down, how are you on a scale of 1 to 10? What's one word that describes you? That could just be a ritual at the beginning of each day. Just check in. It can also be something at the end of the day. How did today go for you? So it's just kind of a pause in a school day. When you are doing any type of circles, it's really important to keep communication flowing. And, you can use words like what or how instead of why. So what were your thoughts on this? How did you feel about this? What would be helpful for you? How do you think we could improve this? Tell us more so we can understand better. And listening is one of the most powerful parts of any activity involving circles. And listening is a skill like anything else. So when we listen, we want to make sure we're showing respect by making eye contact, by nodding, by also observing, if we're, if we see someone's tense or nervous, we can say, hey, I see you look like you might want to take a deep breath right now. Or you listen for tone and volume to see if somebody is, talking really fast or talking really loud because maybe, they're a little nervous. So maybe, it's okay to just say, hey, let's take a minute and relax. And the other thing that happens in circles is people take their time sometimes to talk, but there's no interrupting because they're holding the talking piece. And that's really helpful because it allows people who need an extra minute to collect their thoughts before they speak some more. And so circles are a great way to show patience and kindness to one another as we listen with openness and avoid judgment. The last way to create a community of care is connecting with families. And I know that in busy schools, this is something that is sometimes not always thought of in an ongoing way because everyone's busy, everyone's stressed, and it really adds to a work day to, make calls home and things like that. But it's a really terrific way to show care for our families. And I always say to teachers, you don't have to do this alone. Partner with the school social worker or a counselor, a school psychologist. Do it in partnership with them. Reach out, invite families to talk with you. And when I think about connecting with families, I don't think of it as like, oh, I need to tell you this bad thing your kid did. It's more like, hey, I wanted to, brainstorm and come up with some strategies because I want to have success with your child. And maybe you could tell me more about, what motivates them or what they care about or what they like and so forth. So shared problem solving. There's an old saying that you can't give somebody a drink of water from an empty cup. And when we're working to take care of others, it's really important to take care of ourselves. There's something called compassion fatigue, and it's a stress resulting from helping or wanting to help a traumatized or suffering person. And it can erupt pretty suddenly with little warning, and it can be very acute. And I imagine that during a pandemic, a lot of people are suffering from compassion fatigue. And what are the symptoms of compassion fatigue? Exhaustion. And by the way, as I go through this, if any of these are things that you personally feel, I want you to know you're not alone, and this doesn't judge. This is about self-awareness and then, what we can do to help ourselves. So these are things to just be aware of. Are we getting enough rest? We can have reduced sympathy and empathy. You get fed up, you get overwhelmed, and sometimes that will decrease our level of effectiveness. Like, I can't take one more thing. Or sometimes we're just angry. We've worked long hours, we've had a lack of sleep, we're under stress. And sometimes there's like a low simmer of anger that isn't really traceable back to anything, but it's just there. And this is a sad thing too under a pandemic, is the job that we might once have loved, we're now seeing is just putting a big drain on us emotionally and physically, and even making it hard to get out of bed in the morning. Again, a sign of compassion fatigue. Poor job satisfaction. Things that we like to do before are not as rewarding. And that's a sad thing, because so many people go into education brimming with hope and optimism. And if you're feeling poor job satisfaction, you know, what I always say to people is like, it's not you, it's the pandemic. It's hard for everybody. So don't blame yourself if you're feeling some of these things. It might affect us in being hypersensitive. We might snap on people. We might find ourselves maybe not at our best with our colleagues. And that's something that happens without a pandemic, but it might be more pronounced right now. And the thing that, you know, we hear about frontline workers, you know, in hospitals, but people who work in education with children, they're frontline workers too. And many people are working either from home or working in schools, and then have school-aged children, and then have family members at home, or maybe aging parents. I mean, the list is so long, not to mention, you know, other things and other stressors, you know, money problems, this or that, health issues. And so when you think about what used to provide work-life balance, you know, that's just been tossed up in the air. So again, you know, if you're finding that you're not able to tackle the work-life balances before, you are not alone. And then difficulty sleeping. Doesn't help, does it? When we're trying so hard to keep it all together, and then we can't get rest when we really need it. It's really important at this time to be aware of your body and any physical symptoms you have, and not to neglect things that might be warning signs, and to get, you know, medical help if you need it. People who might have anxiety or depression, you know, might find that it's feeling a lot worse, or feeling isolated or frightened and things like that. People are detaching sometimes from one another and withdrawing a little bit, and it's not personal, but that's just kind of what they're doing to cope. And there's just a lot of that going on right now. So what can we do about all that? Sometimes, you know, we talk about self-care, and it gets annoying because, like, oh, if one more person tells me to take a bubble bath, I'm going to scream. But the fact is that we do have to focus on self-care. We really have to think about how to keep our own glass full of water. We have to think about engaging in the behaviors that support our health and well-being, and being aware of what we can do to bring, you know, greater connection in our workplace and less burnout. When we think about self-care, it's really engaging in activities across domains. So it's not just through work, it's also things like, you know, the exercise, the physical stuff, relational, how we are getting along with people, and even the spiritual. And by spiritual, it can be through a religion, or it can be spiritual and going and, you know, observing nature and being moved by a sunset. So it's really being open to all of these different sources of support. And I think the biggest thing is to break the stigma and know that we're all in this together, and that it's okay to ask for help, or it's okay to reach out to somebody even before they ask. And it's okay to share our own vulnerabilities. I think the saddest thing for me is when people feel like they've got to hold it together and not show weakness. And I just, think that we're all in this human family, and it's when one person asks for help and shows that it's okay to ask for help, or it's okay to not be okay, it really gives permission to everyone else to just, okay, I can let my guard down a little bit and, admit that this is hard for me. And then we can start talking about how we can support each other and what we need. So, again, going back to that self-awareness, like what is pushing our buttons? Is there a time of day that you're at your best? Is there a time of day when you're not at your best? What's kind of fueling it? Is there something that's really pressing your buttons and it's really worth investigating what it is? Fear of something that might happen, something that did happen in the past, or violation of your belief system or your preconceived notions of shoulds. It's really good to just figure out what those things are that are pushing our buttons, because once we identify it, then we can start to kind of process it, maybe by having talks with other people, or even talking with a therapist, or reading a book about it. If you're in a situation where students are really irritating or misbehaving and it's really getting to you, there's some constructive self-talk you can engage in by really kind of stopping to ask yourself, okay, what's happening in front of me? What is the student really asking for or needing? What's motivating the behavior? How am I feeling about the student and the behavior? How can I respond in a way that supports the student instead of reacting emotionally to his or her choices? And what do I need at this time to stay focused on the needs of the student? And when we go back to thinking about trauma-informed, schools and trauma-informed practices, it's really about the adult staying calm and regulated, and not, reacting and flying off the handle and, to everything. And that's an art. And that takes work. It takes practice. It's not natural to not just react to everything that flows our way. So this is really where we can focus on gaining these skills. And going back to that, what do we control? What do we not control? So what do we control? We can control our belief that self-care is essential to mental and physical health. And we can advocate for that in our own life and tell people that it's not selfish to need to take care of ourselves. We can control our knowledge and our expectations to be more realistic. Maybe we're not going to do 500% right now. Maybe we're not going to do 100%. Maybe we're at 50%, and maybe that's okay right now because there's a pandemic. It's really okay to adjust some things right now. The other thing we control is how we perceive the world. And I really advocate for strengths-based thinking. A lot of people in education do. Let's look at what the student is bringing us. Let's look at what their strengths are, rather than a deficit model where everything is what they didn't do and where they failed. And a strengths-based mindset also just helps with attitude, because when we operate with a strengths-based mindset, then we're promoting positivity and even healing, because we're showing grace and we're showing understanding. I came across these, you might have seen these as well, these kind of happiness chemicals and how to hack them. So I just wanted to end on a note where we're going to see what these chemicals can do for ourselves in a natural way. So let's see what this is. So endorphin, you've heard of endorphins. Apparently they kill the pain in our bodies. A lot of people talk about, endorphin release when they exercise and things like that. So yeah, exercise, music, essential oils, or, just tuning things down and watching that comedy. That's self-care. It's okay to do those things, and it's really necessary to our equilibrium right now. Serotonin, the mood stabilizer. Apparently there's foods that are high in tryptophan, which promotes serotonin. meditation. And if you can click on this link here, there's a lot of free sites for meditation. Being out in nature, swimming, cycling, running, being exposed to the sun is really good for you. A lot of people are getting through the pandemic by, trying to find a way to take a walk every day. I know I am. Dopamine, the reward chemical. Well, there's some foods for that too. Also listening to music, but kind of the way we acknowledge that we completed something and celebrating little wins. The most important thing is to show grace to yourself. And, the things that everyone is being asked to do right now, give yourself a lot of credit for doing those things. And you're not boasting if you say like, wow, I did this. And find people who will be supportive with you and give you the pats on the back that you richly deserve, because you do. And lastly, oxytocin, the love hormone. This gets released in the body in childbirth and breastfeeding and things like that, but it's also released with just, love, with playing with the dog and holding hands and hugging and giving a compliment. So these are things to think about too, that these are powerful. They really matter and they are effective. And again, it might not be, a permanent fix, but boy, we're doing things to survive, to get through the day, to get through the evening that, will just lighten our load a little bit. And when you can employ these things and share with students what they can do, that we're all in this together and we can do these things together and these things are powerful, and you can share these slides or modify them to show your own students, then we're modeling some really healthy coping. So the main thing is that to be gentle and empathetic and flexible with yourself. And I love this quote: an effective self-care plan is one that is used. So, some people say, well, my coping is, Netflix and, chocolate ice cream. It's like, more power to you, just do what you need to do. And remember that, schools are healthy, warm institutions that can have true healing power. And that anybody who is working with students or is an educator or working in any type of community setting is that we have the power to help heal others and ourselves. So here's some additional slides and resources just about social emotional support in general. And if, things about school crisis or grieving students or how to talk to students during a pandemic. And then some great, just social emotional essentials of down at the bottom with the Castle Guide. This is all free material and it's great stuff to help learn, how to talk to students and support them. There's also a lot of material on circles, and you can just Google videos about starting restorative circles or circles in school. You can type into a Google search your grade level or your elementary or high school, and you'll find a lot of topics to do in circles and videos that show you how and so forth. Just wanted to plug my own book. As Cindy mentioned earlier, my passion is mediation. And when you think also about coping during a pandemic, learning some good ways to communicate and reduce conflict and stress. And my passion was working with teachers and students to remove the barriers to them understanding each other, especially if there was repeated misbehavior in a class. So this book is available. And also my website has some free webinars on mediation and other things. And I'm really happy to have been with you today. And I really want to encourage you to reach out to me. It delights me to get emails from people who've seen my webinars, and I'm always happy to engage with you. So thank you very much. And Cindy, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
It was awesome, Ondine. Thank you so much for sharing how we can help students, but also how we can help ourselves, because if we can't take care of ourselves, it's very difficult to take care of others.
Yes, for sure.
And so we always, as Ondine said, love to get your questions. If you want to reach out to Ondine, she is And that's how I found Ondine, is I reached out to her from a webinar, and the rest is history. She's a really dear friend and just a great person and very knowledgeable. And I just really I just implore you to reach out to her, because she really is just as wonderful as she seems.
Thank you.
Also, absolutely. Also, feel free to reach out to us if you need services with Pure Mediation. We are more than willing to consult. You don't have to use our services. We can definitely direct you to other people. We try to, a part of OPMP is to promote other people. That is our passion, is to help each other and not to just say, oh, we want to do this. I mean, we really love to, if you're a practitioner and you want to partner with us, we would definitely love to have a webinar from you, or we love to hear an idea of a webinar you would like to hear about more. And we are just in the business of helping people and helping students, of course. So Ondine, again, thank you so much for tonight. And for those watching, we really appreciate it. And we will be back in January with our next webinar, which will be to be announced. In February, we have a webinar about facilitating hard decisions. I'm really excited about that, because I think we have a lot of hard decisions going on right now. We just really need the skills to be able to facilitate when people have to make those hard decisions. So again, thank you everyone for being on, and we will see you soon. Ondine, I think I have you, for some reason, as we're doing the recording. I don't know how I did it. So if you'll go up to your little 3 dots and see if you can stop the recording, or down at the bottom.
Yeah, there you go.